area here we came through with the goats just now. That was a second grazing for this area. We'll just keep regrazing until it strips all the energy out of the roots. As you can see, a lot of the small stuff gets completely stripped and that underbrush will die out with just goats, but the bigger stuff is going to take some help. I'll show you what we do up here with the bigger stuff. So as you can see, they bend a lot of this, medium to small stuff down, and they do strip the leaves off it. But the bigger tree-like buckthorn that is too stiff for them to bend, like these, we can either cut them at about this height, or what we're going to do in this area is we're going to come back and try winter grazing, and that's what will happen is the goats will chew the bark on the buckthorn and kill it that way, so you don't have to cut it. You'll notice this area, it's pretty much really on the edges, a lot of the edges, it's all buckthorn. So once you start cutting some of the bigger stuff, it piles up quick. So what we're gonna try this year, instead of cutting it down, well, first of all, winter grazing is gonna take care of, we think is gonna take care of any of this cutting we would normally do, or you'd normally have to do. But in other spots where we're not going to winter graze, we can winter graze where we have outlets available, because the water is going to freeze. So we use a small heater, 150 watt water heater, to keep it thawed out. So, but another technique you can do, instead of cutting the trees down for this bigger stuff, is just taking the chainsaw and going about almost a 1/4 inch groove all the way around the tree. That'll kill it. That'll kill the top off. So what happens after you do this is next year it'll regenerate shoots out of this stump, just like cutting it off would. But when you do this, you don't have such a mess to clean up right away. They'll just gradually die off that way. That gives goats access to, with all the shoots coming out of the stump, the goats can get at the leaves again, where up in this canopy, the goats aren't going to do you much good. So between winter grazing with the goats stripping the bark on the big stuff, notching the trunks with our saws, and just cutting the big stuff off, we're going to try all three methods this year, see which one works best. I have a feeling the winter grazing with the goats is going to work. It's going to save us a lot of time from having to go and either cut them or notch them out. But as you can see, normally this would be the ground floor would normally be full of small buckthorn, and the goats are going to keep that at bay, allowing us to get in here this winter and start doing some work on this bigger buckthorn. We're going to keep these goats working as long as we can into the winter. As you can see, it got down to 22 last night, but the buckthorn is still nice and green. It didn't sustain a whole lot of damage yet to frost. So if we can go into December this year, we will. There's a lot of buckthorn out here. So we'll try to eat as much of it as we can with the goats. Another thing we're gonna do for winter grazing is we're gonna bring some round bales of hay and kind of just tuck them in the woods, so they can't survive on buckthorn bark alone in the winter. So we'll be supplementing them with hay. We have a protein tub there also that we'll use to supplement them. The biggest thing with winter grazing is just keeping that water unthawed. So they have outlets right here, easy access. That'll help us with that. Also, we'll probably the solar fencers in the winter time, the fence chargers are a problem too. So we'll just use a 110 volt fencer, plug that in also. So that should allow us to winter graze and save a lot of labor on this big buckthorn. We'll see how it goes. When you put a protein tub in for cattle, you can just leave it like this. They'll come and lick, and it'll stay good. If you do this with goats, they'll jump on top of it, they'll poop and pee on it, and your protein tub's ruined. So what I do for goats, tip it on its side, Then I take my chainsaw and just cut a few extra squares because we got over 100 goats here, and the more access they have to it, the better. So they don't like standing on this rounded edge here, so they'll slide off it so they won't stand on it and foul it. And you know, we just quadrupled the access. We got holes here, front, then I cut a hole in the back too, and they've been chewing on all the available holes already. So yeah, this time of year when the nutrition isn't as good as it was midsummer in the leaves, this should help. So we'll see how it goes.